You came back.
It was a 7:30 class, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Because you know me, I'm like, did I mess it up again? Because I do stuff like that.
I'm like, so finally everybody has abandoned me.
It's because you talk too much.
Yeah. I keep saying the same thing all the time. Yeah.
Is it 7:30?
It
Yes,
is 7:30. I'm saying hi to my iPhone guest. Hello, iPhone guest. Right. Well, this is a small class tonight. Oh, look at you. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm the iPhone guest. I'm trying to put my name. Normally, I join from my laptop, but my laptop is low on battery, and I need to be like mobile a little bit. So I'm on my mobile, but I don't know how to change my name. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, you go into participants,
Oh, okay.
a little button that says participants, and then you click
got
on
it.
your name, and then it's an option in the menu.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Sure.
How are you?
Oh, Ma, I'm coming out of the cannon. I'm being shot into the air. I'm very, very happy, doing very, very well.
Thank you, and we are so blessed to have you here with us for so long.
That is a pleasant thought, but ultimately not true.
Oh.
We are blessed by Mother alone. She is everything I've ever thought of knowing, and everything I will ever know eventually. All the other make-believe stuff has to be tossed away.
Until then, I'll see you.
Until then, yes, until then. All right, well, should we give it a few more minutes or?
Is there anybody in person at the center?
Yeah, there's 2 people here.
Oh, okay. Maybe until 7:35. Just
Yeah,
if you're okay with it.
we'll give it 4 more minutes.
Okay.
I'm sure that thousands will watch the recording and hear me say this. But there was one of the direct disciples gave a class to no one once. And he still gave the class. And when his driver came at the end to pick him up and take him and walked in and saw no one there and saw the Maharaj was teaching, he asked him, what were you doing? Who were you teaching for? And he says, I don't know. I did this for Thakur. And so I do everything for Thakur. It doesn't matter if there's somebody there or not. This is what Thakur brought for me to do, and I did it. And I love that. I love that atmosphere. I love that attitude.
The worldly in the thing I've heard it in the form of a joke that there's a speaker giving talk in this big organization, and there's only one other person in the audience. And so he finishes the talk and asks the person, how come you're the only one who's sitting here? What made you sit here? He says, because I'm the next speaker.
That's it. Hi, Ma. Hello, hi, Ma.
Namaste, Swami. Good evening.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of people here. Oh, I had it on the wrong
everybody.
screen. Wonderful. Oh, good. So we can start. I was starting to think, we've only got 2 people here. But which is all right. My commitment is even one is worth it. Always.
What do we chop? Liver?
Well, I don't know. A variation of that.
No, potting soil. Potting soil.
Potting soil. Yes, that's right. All right. Let's do our chant. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryang Karava Vahaye Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahaye. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the divine being
look over us lovingly as a mother and father.
May the divine being
support and nourish us as a mother and father.
May we have the strength and skill
to study together the art of spirituality.
May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. All right, so we are jumping into the world of Nachiketas and joining him in the waiting room for death in a literary way. We spent our whole day in the waiting room of death. but now we're going to learn a little bit about it, and he's going to leave the material world in his questioning tonight, which I'm very, very, very excited about, kind of wanting to know what is behind the veil, what's behind the curtain. And his question starts in verse 14 of the second chapter. Nachiketa says, that which you see as other than righteousness and unrighteousness, other than all this cause and effect, other than what has been and what is to be, tell me that. Right, so if you summarize that, really what he's wanting to know is what is beyond the mind, the active mind. What righteousness and unrighteousness, that's the dualities, those things that are taking us towards something and away from something. What is that? Righteousness is that which leads us to oneness, and unrighteousness is what leads us into the multiplicity. And Vivekananda is the one that taught us that. Actually, he says anything that leads you toward that unity, toward that oneness is virtue. And anything that requires the multiplicity or emphasizes the multiplicity is vice. A very simple definition that kind of, from that one statement, you can unpack all of ethics in a beautiful way. Other than all this cause and effect, right? And we know that cause and effect belong to mind, that it's the mind that breaks the world and interprets it into ideas of cause and effect. And we know that there can be no cause and effect because cause and effect need a boundary, right? If you take the boundaries away, you realize that every cause is also an effect, and every effect is also a cause of something else. And so there is none such thing as a cause and effect unless you are boundarying and saying that between this point and this point, this is a cause and this is an effect. If I widen it too far more into the future, then I see that this effect is going to be a cause for something else. And if I open it up into the past, I'll see that there was a cause for the effect I started with. And so that means that there really is nothing there. It's a matter of definition and a matter of how you're looking at it. And it's caused by egoism, because anytime there's a boundary, there is egoism. Anytime there's a limitation, you can know that it belongs to your ego. So he wants to know what's beyond that, and other than what has been and what is to be. So your past and your future. He wants to know what is beyond that. Why? Because they don't exist. You can't show me the past right now, and you can't show me the future right now, because you've never experienced either. You are the only experience you've ever had is now. You have never been any place but here, and you've never been at any other time than now. So this is the universal notion, and that's why they say be here now, which is a humorous thing to say because you can't do otherwise, but you can wander through mind, right? You can wander through mind, and to do that, you have to wander through your thoughts, and thoughts are caused by boundary, which is egoism. Right, so the thoughts of the mind are indicative of egoism, indicative of boundaries, and so they are the veil that's equivalent to Maya. They're the same thing. Egoism and Maya, the veil of Maya, are one and the same. And we know that because Sri Ramakrishna says that pure mind and Brahman are one and the same. And pure mind is the mind that has no me and mine in it. So there's nothing stirring the mind up. A mind with no me and mine is unchanging. It's the unchanging absolute. It's the isness. And so you could say it was Shiva as such. And then the mind with me and mine in it, when you put a thought of the particular into the mind, that's throwing a rock into the lake that was perfectly calm. And it stirs it all up. And because of that thought of me and mine, now you've got thoughts of other and story and all of that. And so he wants to know what is the reality, or what is beyond that, since we can clearly give arguments that show all of these are conceptual in nature and are changing, which means that they're unreal, right? Swami Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna says to us, that anything that changes is not real. It's that unchanging reality alone. And so his last request is, tell me that, and they put a capital T on that. So it's this unchanging absolute. What is the reality behind all of this? What is behind the movie? You know, he wants to know about the screen. He wants to know about the screen and the light. So tell me about this. So Yama says, the goal which all the Vedas declare. Okay, the Vedas, what are the Vedas? You know, Swami Vivekananda says something quite interesting about the Vedas. He says, by the Vedas, no books are meant. Right? So we're not talking about a collection of knowledge written down in a book somewhere. He says, that which all Vedas declare. The Veda is this moment. This moment is the scripture. And your experience of it is the teaching. Right? In this moment, from this moment, the rishis pulled the Hindu Vedas, you know, pulled them from there, from this moment, which is eternal. It's never begun and never ended. The Bible was pulled, you know, from this moment, all wisdom and all delusion, actually, is sourced in this moment. And so for the seer, for the person who knows his nature, this moment is constantly singing the reality, constantly chanting the ancient mantras. Now we see that, I think it was Rama and Sita who were walking through the woods on the way to their guru's hut. And Rama stretches out his arm and stops Sita for a moment. He says, can you hear that? And she says, what, Rama? He says, the birds are singing the Vedas, are repeating the ancient mantras, you know? And so that is exactly what we're talking about. This moment, when seen as it is the scripture. All of the things we've ever written, we've simply borrowed from the moment. We've crystallized that which can't be particularized and given it a form, right? So that's why scripture can't really tell you anything about the divine reality. It can only tell you what the divine reality isn't, so that in the words of Swami Chidbrahmananda, that which is obvious can become apparent to us. So the goal which all the Vedas declare, so the goal of the moment, the reality of the moment, right? Because a moment can't have a goal in it, right? A moment can't have a story in it at all, right? A moment is microscopically small, and it's kind of funny because you think this moment is so thin, you know, especially when mind tries to place the ideas of past and future into it. When you stop and think about how long does the future become the moment before it becomes the past, right? And that is an infinitesimally small slice of whatever it is, a slice of time, which really, you can't really say it's a slice of time, because time really is just the rate of thought in your mind. When you have no thought, you have no experience of time. When you have a very busy mind, you have a very heavy experience of thought or experience of time. So he says, other than this, or that the goal, which all these Vedas declare, the point of this moment really is ultimately that this moment is the divinity. If you're going to talk about the world of duality, then this moment is God. That's why God, the scriptures declare that the name of God is I am. Right? I am means this present, this isness that doesn't have a boundary. That is the existence. So the goal that all the Vedas declare, which all austerities aim at, right? The whole reason we do all of these practices and the reason we do things that challenge us is to try and break out of this story that we're in, this story that the mind has concocted about who we are, what needs to be done, what we have to do, right? And these stories are very important. These stories all kind of bleed out of this misnomer of egoism, that we exist separate and apart from everything else. And so to break this story of being separate and apart from everything else, being small, we do these austerities to kind of break our attachment to the body, to break our attachment to the mind, where these stories are formed through attachment, through identification with things. We identify with the thought of our body and we say, I'm the body, right? We speak that way. So when the body gets sick, we actually make the mistake of saying, oh, I'm sick. Well, you can't ever be sick. You are the eternal being, right? And things of the mind also. We attach our eyes to them. I'm in a bad mood, right? Well, you can't be in a bad mood. The mind is in a bad mood. It told you that you were in a bad mood and you were attached to it, believed yourself to be that. And so now you suffer a bad mood. And so it's your attachments that create these stories. And the danger of these stories is that when you tell yourself these stories, that's your karma. And that's what you are forced to experience, forced to go through. And with those who live with me in Colorado, whenever we have a class and we have a Q&A and somebody says something like, meditation is so difficult, oh boy, I'm always like, what have you done? Do you know what you've just done? You've created a story. You've told yourself meditation is difficult. So now every time you sit down to meditate, you're going to start with the fundamental principle, meditation is difficult. So yes, indeed, for you, meditation is going to be difficult because you have created a story that you have to wander through. And so be very, very careful about the stories you let your mind tell you that you attach to, right? So that you can be free. Because realization is apparently very, very simple. Because the very definition of realization is just being what you have always been and will always be, right? To be what you are and not what your mind is telling you you are. And so that is why we're shooting for silent mind. And that is what he's talking about here, all austerities, all the things that bring us to the stillness of mind, because it's only in that stillness of mind when nothing is telling you who you are that you will know who you are. And you will not be able to turn it into a thought because it is outside of time, space, causation, and the mind cannot conceive of it. So you will only know what you are in that silence. You will never have a definition of yourself. You will never have a sentence that you can say, I am blah, 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 blah. And if you think that you can, you've just created karma in a story. And that's what you will have to be and live until you break out of this bondage that you've created. So which all austerities aim at and which men desire when they lead a life of continence. Right? What an interesting thing. So this men desire when they lead why wouldn't they desire this when they're not being continent? Because when you believe yourself to be the body, your desire is for things of the body. When you believe yourself to be a mind, your desire is for those things that are of the mind. And the one desire of the self, which you can't really call it a desire, it's just being, right? To be soaked in that Rasgola juice of Satchitananda, that pure infinite love, that pure wonder of being, and all wrapped in an infinite ocean of wisdom, right? Wisdom that spontaneously expresses, spontaneously available to you. It's not like knowledge in the mind that you have to go into this referential relational library, ask a question, and then run to the shelf and find the book to answer it. Spiritual wisdom, the wisdom that's inherent in you, is spontaneously available to you always in the moment if you're not running to the library of the mind. If you sit there in silence, everything is available. All of knowledge is available in that moment. And that's why a realized soul never makes a mistake. They know they have the wisdom inherent in their being that will guide them safely through the moment without making an error, right? Without creating a story of egoism, of separateness. So he says, yes, so which all austerities aim at and which men desire when they lead the life of continence, when they stop identifying themselves with the body and with the mind. You cannot engage in non-continence, to find some scientific word for it, while not believing yourself to be a body. You have to be 100% identified with your body, and you are 100% then identifying your partner as a body. And that is necessary for that adventure that you're on to complete. So he's saying men desire nothing really except existence, knowledge, and bliss when they break away from this idea of the body. And that's where our notion of slavery comes from. You know, we identify with the body mind. So when we are identified with body and mind, how do we define freedom? We define freedom as being able to do whatever I want. Well, that's actually, and you know how the scriptures say that Maya flips everything 180 degrees, literally flips it upside down. Well, there's a great example that you define freedom as being being able to do whatever you want to do, when in fact that's the very definition of bondage, because you have no desire. If you go into your inner world and you understand the boundaries of body, the boundaries of mind, and the separateness of self as the observer, as the witness, one of the things you will learn as you pay attention and as you discern is that every desire arises from either the body or the mind, but never the self. The self never produces a desire. Only body and only mind produce that sense of imbalance, that sense of smallness, that sense of lack in the moment. And so when you come to know that you actually in your true nature have no desire whatsoever, then you come to understand that all of those desires that you've accumulated by identifying with body and mind is you running around serving something that's not you, something that has nothing to do with you. And your body has made a slave of you. You got up this morning, you washed it, you perfumed it, you decorated it, you dressed it, you fed it, you walked it, you entertained it, you know, and the mind exactly the same. You coddled its moods, you know, you tried to make it happy, you tried to calm it down, you tried to take away its sadness and its restlessness, and you entertained it, you know. And so this is what we're trying to get past, which all austerities aim at, which men desire when they lead the life of continence. I will tell you briefly, it is Om, right? It is Om. And what is Om? I'm going to dig into the Christian scriptures for that. You know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. A very interesting statement, right? Because how can something be God and be with God? So Om, at its essence, is vibration, right? Sound. Sound is just an example of it. I mean, it's a vibration in its abstracted sense. Word is when that vibration takes on meaning, becomes part of story, you know, starts to create. When the movie begins, the screen is no longer just white and with just a plain light on it. Now the images begin to play across the mind, the stories begin, you identify with it, and suddenly you're weeping and you're laughing and you're terrified and all these things just because you're sitting in a room with some colored light flashing off of a screen in front of you, or the reflection of the light of consciousness reflecting off of mind when it's refracted through egoism. So that's what you get all caught up in and start relying to it. But the essence of that is Om, is word, right? And it is word that has become everything. In the Christian scripture, it says, you know, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And that can be said of all the avatars. That is what an avatar is, when that word in its purest form, right? When it's expressing only Satchitananda, that word, when it manifests, is avatar. When it expresses Satchitananda and presses it through a set of limitations and restrictions, that's you. And you press it through a few more restrictions and limitations, it's a flower. And you press it through a whole bunch of restrictions, it's a rock, right? And so this Om, this vibration, this source of story, this potential of story, becomes everything, becomes this whole world. So what you are experiencing now is the vibration, right? But when that goes to its potential form, right? When it goes to its silent form or its unmanifest form, pure potential, then it is Brahman. It's the absolute unchanging, right? It's what banged in the Big Bang, as it were. This syllable Om is indeed Brahman, right? So it's like the mind without disturbance is Brahman, right? The pure mind, the mind with no me and mine, no idea of particular in it, is Brahman. And let's get a nice handle on that so we can get an understanding, so we just don't build a philosophical abstraction here. When you fell into your dream last night and you entered into your dream world, in that dream, perhaps there were mountains, perhaps there was an ocean, perhaps those mountains were 150 miles away, perhaps there was a legion of people and a few of them were chasing you with swords and chariots and you were running terrified. What actually was there? You know, obviously, if I walked into your bedroom when you were sound asleep in the middle of your dream, I'm not going to see chariots roaring through the room. I'm not going to look out your window and see the mountains you're dreaming of. There's nothing there, but clearly you see them, and clearly they're 150 miles away, and clearly you're in danger because all these horsemen are chasing you in their chariots. What is that? What is that material of mind that can become everything? It can become the air, it can become the water, an ocean, anything. Whatever you fancy to dream of, that material that creates the dream, that looks like material, that's why we call it a material world, is Brahman. Right? An infinite substance that cannot be defined. You can't grab any of it and then bring it into this level of manifestation, right? But you can fully experience it. And so in this world, we've already talked about, I'm not going to tell the story again about the light bulb and the concept because I'll run somebody out of the room, that same Brahman that creates the dream has created the world that you're sitting in right now, right? And so it's a wonderful exercise, and I've been doing it now for a couple of months, and I have to say it's starting to have some bearing on the way that I think and the way that I feel in this world, is to sit on the edge of my bed before I get out of it in the morning, sit there and I rub the covers with both my hands, you know, right next to where I'm sitting. And I just tell myself, I'm stroking Brahman. I'm touching Brahman with Brahman, in Brahman, right? I'm sitting there, but I become aware. I try to make myself aware as my very first thought as I face the day, not to think of things as material and separate from me, but to realize that everything here is Brahman. It's the dream stuff. It's the mind stuff. And that it has created everything that I am and everything that I'm looking at the moment, right? My bed, my body. And I just sit there touching it and trying to come to the understanding that if I take away my particularity here, that this whole room is made of God, right? The God stuff, shall we say, right? Which really in truth has no limit and no manifestation, but seems to at this moment. And start your day from that place, knowing that this is Brahman, knowing that the light that you're experiencing, that which is illumined everything that you're looking at, is not the sun, not the light bulb in your room, not the lamp by your bed, but that light is that light of consciousness, that light of awareness, right? Because in your same dream, even though you're sitting in your bed under the covers, sound asleep with your eyes closed and the lights out, you're still going to see those mountains and you're still going to see that army of chariots. Why? The light of consciousness is shining. And so that light of consciousness is always shining. Now, it's really the light of awareness. What's the difference? Sri Nisargadatta says that pure awareness has no objects in it. That's the one without a second. So it doesn't reflect off of anything. But consciousness is awareness with an object in it, or billions of objects in it. It's reflecting off of something. So pure awareness has no objects. Consciousness is awareness with objects, and pure consciousness and awareness are the same thing. Like that. So just to kind of keep those definitions clear for us. So this syllable Om, right? This word, this which has created everything you see and experience, is indeed Brahman. This syllable is the highest. There's nothing beyond it, right? That's why it is with God and it is God. When it's with God, it's in the form of the dream. It's in the form of the story. It's in the form of the ego. It's in the form of the disturbed mind because particularization has been thrown into it, me and mine. has been done, has been tossed into that thing. And me and mine is not a native thought to this ocean of Brahman. It's a very disturbing thought because it's unreal. And so when you throw that rock of me mine into your ocean of pure Brahman, undifferentiated Brahman, suddenly it just goes nuts because you've added a virus. You've added a wrong idea. And so now I like to think in a way, and this is just a fun way to describe it. You know, it's kind of like you are that, right? Ultimately, you are the divine. And now the divine thinks he's a particular. Now the divine thinks he's this small body named Swami C or whatever your name is in the dream. And now all the legion of all the myriads of heaven, they all panic. Oh my God, the master thinks he's a beggar on the street. Quick, change everything to support his idea because he's God. We serve him, right? So change everything and create a reality where he can be a beggar on the street. And so that's what happens. The whole dream has to form, has to twist into manifestation to support your wrong idea of yourself and to play the game with you, right? So this syllable is the highest. Whosoever knows this syllable obtains all that he desires, right? If you know that you are dreaming while you're in the dream, you then know that the dream is in you, just like Swami Vivekananda says. You know that the dream is within you, that you are the ultimate dreamer. And so we have a new name of God, my beloved dreamer. You are the dreamed, and the beloved is your dreamer. He has dreamed you and the world that you're existing in right now. And the light of your world is his love. It gives you the ability to exist, right? All the plants that grow, that feed the animals and things that are all around us is that light of love, which nourishes everyone. And so if you're ever feeling alone and broken and like nobody cares, look at the light in the room you're sitting in. And remember, never forget, that light is the love of God, and it touches every part of you, nourishes everything about you, gives you life and sustenance, warmth, hope, and lights up your story. So focus on that and know that the embrace of God is 100%. You know, sit there in the light and it's covering you, touching you, warming you, and have a direct experience as such, a direct experience through a body, but nonetheless, a direct experience as far as life goes down here, a direct experience of the love of God. And it's a beautiful thing to remember in your darkest times when you're not seeing things properly. Right? So whoever knows this syllable obtains all that he desires because now he's in control of the dream. Right? If you're dreaming and you know that you're dreaming and you know the dream belongs to you, then you are in charge of your dream. You can change it as you like. And if you have a desire, you can manifest it just then and there. As soon as you have it, it manifests. It's yours, right? But there really is no desire, because desires are only born when you enter into consciousness, when you place an object in awareness. That's the only time that desire comes into the picture at all. And it's always born of imbalance. It's always born of a lack, a sense of lack, right? Which comes through attachment. When you don't have any desire, then you are the absolute unchanging. There's nothing out of balance. There's nothing to move, nothing to be different. You're perfect, content, at peace, enjoying the hum of your native bliss through the wonder of being, the potential of being, and the deep, wonderful, infinite wisdom that nurtures it all. So whoever knows this syllable obtains all that he desires. Whoever knows the nature of this universe to be dreamlike, to be a disturbance in me and with me and mine, you can obtain all that you desire. This is the best support. This is the highest support. Whosoever knows this support is adored in the world of Brahma, the creator, right? If you know the nature of these things, basically you are that creator. You are the adored creator. You are the maker of your dream. And so come to this knowledge The knowing self is not born. What is the knowing self? It's the source of the light of awareness or consciousness that's reflecting in mind, right? That is the self, the capital S self. So right now you have basically this, if you think about it like a teacher holding, she has that wooden stick, she stands at the blackboard and she points at things, she smacks your hand with it, whatnot. That stick right there, we spend all of our life at the pointing end of that stick, right? We live it in the thoughts of the mind, right? We're at that end of the stick, experiencing things. When we look at something, we don't think about me, the looker. We think about what we're looking at. We're completely absorbed in what we're experiencing, what we're looking at. We're not paying at all the attention of the teacher at the other end of the stick, the knower, as it were, which will be important in a verse or two here. And so what you have to come to do is allow everything in this manifested universe to point at the other end of the stick. Stop paying attention to all the noise on that other end of the stick and start paying attention to the silent end of the stick, which is the knower, that which is observing all of this change. And that other end of the stick is the absolute unchanging. It's the only thing that's real. Everything at the other end of the stick is constantly changing. It's like a magic wand. Everything at that end of the stick is constantly sparkling, dancing, changing, moving, running, laughing, crying, all of that. And that's why we pay attention to it. It's fascinating. It's glamorous. It's scary. It's wonderful, right? It's the story. It's what you could be. All the potentials of possibility, the dreams that they made you form in kindergarten, to be a policeman or to be a fireman. Right? You place that at the far end of the stick and you go on the adventure. You create the story and you go on the adventure. And that's life. So he says this knowing self, the self that's at the right end of the stick that's the end of the stick that's observing or pointing at everything, that we come to know that it's not born, right? Because born happens in disturbed mind. Born happens only when me and mine has infected mind. And it doesn't die for the same reason, right? Everything that is composed, which means everything that's manifested, must decompose. So, right, so those things unmanifested, which is the observer, the witness, doesn't manifest. He's watching the manifest, observing the manifest, as it were. But he himself is the container of that manifestation. He is the totality of that manifestation. So he is the perfect balance. Of the ultimate perfect balance, which is the summation of the manifestation or the source of it. So this knowing self is not born, it does not die, it has not sprung from anything. Why? Because it's not real, right? You can build a house in your dream, and while you're in the dream, you can say, oh, well, that house sprung from the rocks and the cement and the bricks that I put together to build it. But when you come to real knowledge, when you come to realize yourself or wake up from the dream, there's no house. And so that house had no beginning, right? It only has an end. It had no beginning because it never existed. It was just composed out of Brahman. It was an idea. It was a story that you were telling yourself. And when you wake up, it's gone. And so it has not sprung from anything because it hasn't sprung. It's an illusion. Nothing has sprung from it, right? Nothing has sprung from it because that boulder that fell down the mountain and rolled over the chariot of your enemy, there was no boulder. It was an idea, piece of story, manifested in a universal substance called Brahman, and it rolled over the same. Right? But if you put a drop of water into a bucket of water, and then you want to go and get that drop of water out of that bucket of water, how are you going to do that? It's the same substance within the same substance. There's nothing there. So nothing could have sprung from it, right? Itself couldn't have sprung from anything. So it returns to that boundary. It actually never had a boundary, but you still know what a drop of water is, right? And if you added it to the bucket, somehow it's in there. but you can't grab something back. You can't grab a boundaryless something out of a boundaryless something else. And so that's what he's saying here. It has not sprung from anything, and nothing has sprung from it. Birthless, right? We touched that one. Eternal. How did we define time? Time is the rate of thinking. Time is the space between the ripples in the lake of Brahman from the rock of me and mine that you threw into it. So as you watch those ripples, the space between the ripples, thought, the space between thoughts is what gives us our sense of time. And you can experience that. You can see that firsthand. Go into your meditation, which means surrender everything, surrender thought. And if you have a good meditation, which again is just an idea, just a story, but if you have a good meditation, you'll find that you'll sit there when you look at your watch, oh my God, I've been sitting here for an hour and a half and it seemed like 2 minutes. You had an experience of your eternity, of your eternal nature. You had a mind without thought for a moment, or with very few thoughts. And so time didn't pass, right? There was no time there. And so you can actually get an observing it. Of course, you're looking at it through glass and it's still distant from you because you've got all kinds of stories running really in the background that just aren't manifesting yet. But nonetheless, you get a direct experience there if you can become aware of it and watch it and see it and recognize it, of your eternal nature. So eternity is not a long time. Eternity is no time, out of time, beyond time. It's not measurable, right? Because time isn't a thing. Time is a concept, just like the past, just like the future, just like your separateness. All of the components of ignorance, or of story. Instead of calling it ignorance, you call it story, the story of your ego, the story of self, your small self. It's eternal, everlasting, and ancient. That's the way of saying the same thing. Everlasting, it's beyond time. It's this moment, right? This moment is everlasting and ancient, and at the same time, only present. There's a fun idea, right? History is contained in this moment. This moment that you're experiencing right now is everything. Yeah. I mean, it's all of it. And this moment is the summation of your entire past. It contains your entire past is indicated in this moment. And it's the seed of your entire future. It's from this moment that all possibilities of your future are projected. So if you inhabit this moment, you can know the entire past and you can know the entire future, as long as you're willing to drop the boundaries of your particular story at the moment. So that's why we talk when you're reading a book, right? That book, there's nothing changing in that book. That book's already written. That story is going to end the same way every time you read that book. But how do you read the book? You read the book by putting your finger in a particular place and drawing along and following what's under your finger. And that summation of your past creates your knowledge of the story up until that point. And all of the rest of the words in front of you, as you tag them, are manifesting the future, telling the story. Right? And just as a fun side, a little swirl in the side, it's like people say, well, what about, freedom of, choice? What about free choice? Free will. Free will. There it is. What about free will? Well, what about free will? Does it exist? Who cares? Right? Who cares? If you haven't read the book before, it's no less exciting because there's no free will in it than if you assume there is free will in it. You're going to experience it as free will. You're going to watch the characters in the book make their choices, right? And so you're going to experience free will. There's no way to know one way or the other. Why? Because actually there is no will, right? Will really only comes from imbalance. It belongs to the dream. It belongs to the story. There is no will. That's why it's a misnomer to talk about the will of God. This moment is the will of God. That which is, all powerful, ever present, eternal. If it wants something, it is. There's no space of time, no passage of time. Again, we're talking ourselves into a circle, but there's no passage of time for the will of God. The will of God is. It's the I am. It doesn't have to be done. It doesn't have to be, there's no effort made. It simply is. right? So this self is birthless, eternal, everlasting, and ancient. It is not killed when the body is killed. That means your body has nothing to do with you. It's only you identifying with it that makes you think it has something to do with you. And because you've identified with it, you've taken on all of its troubles, that big old fat headache that it's given you for the last 70 years of your life, or however long you've been around. All right, so if the killer thinks he kills, and if the killed man thinks he is killed, neither of these apprehends aright, right? So, and the magic is in the use of the word thinks, right? All of your story starts with thought. So if you can manage to put a stick through the spokes of the wheel of thought on your bicycle, it stops immediately. It no longer has a destination. It stops immediately. And in that silence of self is when everything comes together, right? That's when knowledge is born. So if you can sit there in absolute silence, no thought, so the ripples of the lake in mind cease. The lake is purely calm. Then you see what is being reflected. You see the capital S self. You see the moon in its entirety in the lake, and it's easily identified as the beloved dreamer. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't have an attribute. It doesn't have a particular. It is isness. It is the matrix that contains the dream. So neither of these, the killer or the killed, neither of these are thinking properly. None of them are seeing accurately because they're seeing through the lens of their restricted and limited perception of or idea of self. The self kills not, nor is it killed. And this is what makes the dream beautifully wonderful to enjoy, right? Because the end game of realization is fearlessness. Once you come to know that those army of chariots that are chasing you in that dream are not real, and that actually if you knew them to not be real and you became aware that you were the dreamer and not the dreamed, you could just turn around and the entire army is gone. Right? So you live in a state of fearlessness, and you come to know that this light of your dream is pure love. The story of the dream is born of an infinite wisdom and infinite intelligence, right? And that the moment alone is real, and the ecstasy of that cannot be described, cannot be trapped, cannot be coined, cannot be put in a sentence. So it's in that silence of mind, that inner stillness, that you will come to know who you are. You will not be able to describe it. Why? Because to describe it, you have to crank up another story. And then there you go again. So don't create another story. Come to that stillness and be. Don't be you. That's the problem. Being you is you trying to say what you are. Just be. Don't try to describe yourself. Don't try to know yourself in that sense, right? Otherwise, you're right back where you began. All right. So Atman, smaller than the small and greater than the great. What? What's he saying? It's not relative. It's not relative. It needs nothing to define it, right? It is the first thing from which everything else is measured. It's the unchanging absolute. It's the divine principle. It's God. It's your beloved dreamer. Right? That is what it is. And so it's not relative. It's smaller than the small, right? And it's greater than the great, because it is the thing from which small things are determined to be small and big things are determined to be big. And without that, divine, that absolute unchanging, there can be no relative world, because it would collapse in on itself, because no value would mean anything, right? No value would mean anything. And if you want to figure this out, you can do that. I remember when I read Ramakrishna, when he said that which is unchanging alone is real, and that which changes is unreal. I went looking for that. And to look for it, one of the experiments I did, I said, what is one thing that I know that is not dependent on anything else that I know? And that one thing that you know that is not dependent on anything else that you know is I am, the name of God. Right? That is the only thing that you know that depends on nothing else that you know. And that's what he's saying here. There's no attribute. There's no relativity. That I am is not relative to anything. It is the original measure. Right? So this Atman is smaller than the small, greater than the great. It's hidden in the hearts of all living creatures. So don't go running around the world like I did in the 90s trying to find it. All right. I woke up one time, I got home from trying to entertain myself and realized I was horribly depressed and sat on the edge of my bed and realized that everything I owned had just gotten bigger over the course of my life. I hadn't really added anything to myself. And I said, okay, Vance, which was my name at the time. I said, Vance, I give you permission to do whatever you need to do to be happy. Well, I wasn't a spiritual being at the time. I didn't know what would make me happy. So I decided being an expatriate writer would make me happy. And so I began that story and ran through that. And after a while realized, nope, that doesn't work either. Right? So it's hidden in the heart. It's here. And that occurred to me on the island of I want to say Ranganathananda, but that's my guru. Rarotonga, there it is. The island of Rarotonga, because I was sitting on the front porch of the dive hostel thinking about my experience on the island, and that I was looking for this meaning in life. And I had wandered quite a few other places at that point. You know, I had lived in Prague for a while. I'd been in London for a while. I'd flown to Asia for a while. I spent some time in New Zealand and down under. And then I was in Rarotonga, and I sat there on the front of this porch in Rarotonga thinking, gosh, that was a waste of time, because if there is a reality, then the people on this island who can't get off of it, because there were only 10,000 people there, and that island was $1,000 plane ticket to anywhere else in the world, and there wasn't $1,000 per person's worth of economy on that island. You know, so those 10,000 people had always been on that island, and I thought, well, we must be able to bring this thing with us wherever we are. My search of the outside world is finished. And I went back to my job in San Francisco and began to search interiorly for something, whatever this must be. And that was the place to find it. That's why Ramakrishna says that the heart is the drawing room of God. That's where you go to meet God. And where is the heart? Well, ideally, it's, the notion of it is that it's here. But really what it means is that it's not here, right? Your source of love. Think of something that you love. Think of something you love deeply right now and abstract it. Stop paying attention to that end of the stick when you're thinking of something that you love, and feel the love itself, right? This is one of the points of the mantra, because the mantra becomes that source of love. And as it's pulsing in the mind with each repetition, and it's become habit, so you no longer have to keep it going, it goes by itself, well, then you can start to walk around it and think, where is this coming from? Where is this love that's being indicated, that's manifesting by this mantra, which is its name? What is the form that's manifesting? And that leads you to the shrine of the heart, or the cave of the heart, according to St. John of the Cross, or the drawing room of the heart, according to Sri Ramakrishna, but the place where you will meet your real self, the place where you will have your first ecstasy, the place you will blow your mind and blow your senses and experience your ecstatic state of being. Right? So it's hidden in the hearts of all living creatures. A man who is free from desires beholds the majesty of the self through tranquility of the senses and the mind, and becomes free from grief. Right? We've touched on all that so far, but we'll walk through it here and just bring us there again. So free from desires, which means you know yourself not to be body, not to be mind. That identity is broken. So what's left? You're sitting in the silent stillness of self, right? It's not a silence of nothingness. Why? Because it's Satchitananda. So it's a manifesting infinite potential or an unmanifesting infinite potential. So it's not a silence caused by emptiness. It's a silence of pure potential, a silence from which everything comes. So the man who is free from desire sees this. That's what you understand. That's the you that cannot be described, the you which is beyond the story. Free from desire, beholds the majesty of the self. Your nature. You are majestic. Right? If you want to know how majestic you are, come visit me in Colorado and I'll take you up to the Rocky Mountains. Right? We'll go camping and you'll wake up in the morning and look at that snow-peaked mountain before you and you'll be like, wow, I'm magnificent. Because that mountain exists within you. It's the reflection of the light of consciousness that you are within you. So you can get an idea of the majesty you're going to encounter when you see the origin of those mountains within yourself. Right? So you'll see, you'll be free from desires. You'll behold the majesty of the self through tranquility, right? Utter peacefulness, because there's no disturbance. There's no me or mine causing the waves and the story and the stress of that story and the needs and hungers of that story. The tranquility of the senses, right? Because the senses, when you know that you are not them, you realize that everything you've experienced until this moment has only been a thought. You have never owned anything but a thought. That car, just a thought. You know, your wife, just a thought. Your children, they're just a thought because they exist only made of dream stuff within Brahman. The story, they're only there because of the story you're telling. Right? So you come to know that everything that you've ever experienced was only a thought in the mind. And then you begin to see with equanimity that everything manifested is only a thought in the infinite mind of God. And because everything is a thought, everything becomes equanimous, and you realize, I need none of it. It's just a reflection in the mirror. So you come to know this, the tranquility of the senses and the mind, and becomes free from grief. The imbalance is gone. The story that started it all, that caused a sense of lack, has ceased. And you're balanced, you're content, and you can hear the hum of Om, that potential of everything, and beyond. So you are free from grief. The need and the hunger are done. All right, that's a great place to stop for the evening. Are there any questions or comments, challenges?
Swami,
Yes, Lynette. Oh, you're here.
There.
Can you hear me?
Oh, wait just a minute. Let's start one at a time.
Okay.
Who has a question? Lynette, do you have a question? Or a
Well,
statement?
I've been doing a lecture series with Swami S about the Shvartashvara Upanishad also as and yours. And I'm getting this sense, and I just want to see if I'm on the right track. I kind of getting this feeling that everything in the world, ourselves included, are the matrix for Brahma to experience himself.
Okay.
Yeah, like we're the conduit.
Okay. From the position we're sitting in, you can say that and enjoy that thought. We only think that way, though, because we can't imagine ourselves as a non-particular. If you're a non-particular, there is no self to experience. You are the experience and the experiencer simultaneously.
Right.
Right. So in the highest level, no. There is nothing to experience. There would be no need for him to experience himself because he or she or that is perfectly content. He has no desire to experience himself, no need for any experience whatsoever. So, you know, so there is no cause to this universe. there's just isness, because there's no space in the moment for a cause. There's only a space in the story for a cause. So when you drop story, there's just isness. There's no reason for this.
So we can't even be like the gel.
It can be whatever is helpful to you from where you're sitting now. All of it is fine, and all of it will be experienced as real. You know, even though this chair I'm sitting in right now is just a thought, and the I that's sitting in it is just a thought at this moment because it's an ego I, I'm still experiencing the chair. And so I can describe this chair as it's blue, you know, and it's fabric. And so, yes, I can give you the idea that I know what this chair is, but I have no idea what this chair is. It's not there. It's not separate from me. It's made of the same thing that I am made of as an ego self. And so, yes, you can come up with any descriptions that you want for these things. But when you realize, when you come to the notion, when you're sitting in that silence and know the reality, you'll see that none of it's necessary. That was the perspective of a hungry mind, a hungry body, a lonely existence that was separate and apart from the whole. And when that is fixed, there's no need for a story. There's no need for a pursuit. There's no need for a reason, because there is no cause and there is no effect. The cause is the effect, and thou art that. All right.
Swami, just a real quick reminder about
Yes.
letting them know, it's not time yet. He's
Okay.
gonna keep you right on time.
Okay.
But letting them, like, that our people know that if they can't get through the
right.
links, they
All
can
right.
go. I put it on WhatsApp, but One
Yes.
Spirit Thought Center. Thank you.
Yes. So I'm just being reminded in a very good way that in half an hour, there's another class.
I know, you're a busy guy. Okay, well, thank you. Just
No, I don't have to go. But she wants me to tell you that if you want to come to that class, you have to go to the link that's at onespirit.center. And it's in the WhatsApp group for Atlanta. If you're an Atlantan and want to come to that class, then go and click on that link, because there was a mistake in the bulletin or whatever went out for the link to that class. So you can get it in the WhatsApp group, but it's One Spirit, ONESPIRIT.center, CENTER, not com, center. And you can get that list on the second page there. But we don't have to go now because I still have a half an hour before that class starts. So
thank you. Just kicking around ideas. Thank you.
yes,
Kicking around
absolutely.
stories.
And do that, because it's by doing that everything that you can think or posit points at the truth, right? It won't be the truth, but it will point at it. So keep doing it. All right.
See you later. Bye.
All right. Bye, Lynette. Hi, Swami.
I actually have a couple of questions. I'll try to keep it short, and if there's no time, you please choose to answer only one or none. I wrote in my notes as I was listening to you, and I don't know if it's correct, but I think you said that God or beloved is the dreamer, and we are the dreamed.
Yes.
And if God knows that he is dreaming, then when any particular gets done, like death, for example, is it just that God is choosing to have a different dream?
None of this is actually true, right? So we can't say that God is actually this or that based on the way that we're describing these things. Everything that we've said tonight is true from the relative standpoint, right? From the pursuit of the truth, but not ultimately the truth. So I can tell you another story that might elucidate that a little bit, in the sense that when you create an attachment in your mind, you create a sentient being, right? You can experience that because it argues with you. If like you attach to the idea of having ice cream and you want to go eat that ice cream, that thought now is sentient and it will argue with you when you say no, right? Well, who is there to argue with you? There's no one there to argue with you. But your attachment has created this entity that has now a copy, a shared portion of your Satchitananda. So it has a truth to itself. It has a will. It has an intelligence. You know, it has reasons for its existence, and it has existence. But it's all borrowed. It's all from you. And if you abstract that up a level, you are a thought in the mind of God. And what kind of thought? You're a thought about love, about wisdom, and about being. And God can be, you could say that God is doing what Lynette was talking about, experiencing himself. He wants to see, what do I look like when I'm being pressed through a limitation and a restriction, right? A mind, body, an ego. So when I take perfect love, which is everywhere present, always perfect, and doesn't have any particular because it's unconditioned, right? If I want to see what that looks like in a particular condition, well, then I attach to you, right? God attaches to you, and you become a story of perfect love and perfect wisdom, being pressed through the limitations and restrictions that are swayam, right? And this will take many lifetimes, you know, not just you as a thought continue beyond the dropping of the body in the dream. It goes all the way until it returns back to its source. And then God is no longer attached to that story of love. But he's got 7 billion of these things going at the same time. So he's exploring the nature of love from 7 billion perspectives at this particular moment in this made-up reality of truth that we're presenting right now. And so you can kind of get an idea just that's consistent with the ignorance that we're experiencing, and maybe giving you a good pointer to how to get out of here, in the sense that if you're dreaming, how do you get out of the dream, right? Well, you do neti neti, because you're not anything in that dream, and you have to back into the dreamer. You have to erase the dream and come into the reality of the dreamer, like that. So, you know, so all of these things, that's why the scriptures don't exist to tell us what God is. We started with that story, right? The scriptures exist to tell you what God is not, so that that which is obvious can become apparent.
The second question I have is the name of the Upanishad itself. It's Katha Upanishad, so it's a story. Is it that the Rishi that's intuiting the knowledge is using a story form to teach?
Say that again. It's a little muffled on your.
Sorry. The name of the Upanishad is Katha Upanishad.
Uh-huh.
And Katha means a story. So the Rishi who intuited the knowledge in deep meditation, is he using a story form to teach?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What did she say?
So the Rishi who wrote the Katha Upanishad, was he trying to teach us through a story?
Oh.
Absolutely. Because that's all we can understand. Because when we want to know something, we don't go to the shrine of the heart to find out. We don't sit in silence and allow manifestation of that within ourselves. We go to the mind, right? And the mind is only a bunch of stories. And we go to those stories, we thumb through those stories, that history of stories, to come up with a relative answer that's very satisfying, because we have defined ourselves relatively. And so relative stories make sense to us. And so all of the scriptures are created within relativity to point at that which isn't, you know, and to try and convince us to stop being so enamored with the constant flow of unrepeating change at one end of the stick, and come back to the other end of the stick, which is the absolute unchanging, which is observing it. Right?
Thank you.
Yes,
I
Frank.
wanted to piggyback on the comment the First Lady made. I've heard that also, that one description is that this is God experiencing itself.
Uh-huh.
And you were saying how God doesn't need to experience itself. Then according to Vedanta, why the heck are we here?
There is no answer to that.
Oh, great.
Because we're not here.
Okay.
You're a thought. Why is there a thought? We don't know. We know that the original cause is God itself.
So Vedanta doesn't say why they think we're here? Or
No, nobody posits the why.
Okay.
Outside of a story, outside of
Okay.
just kind of coming up with something that's
Because I
satisfying.
heard that story, and I found it rational. I said, oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that makes good sense.
Yeah, no, it's rational, no doubt. But what is rational? Right? It's like rational is relative. So yes, within the relative world and within our world of experience and thinking, it makes sense, it's satisfying, and that's good enough. And because it's a question that will never be answered because the question dissolves. That's the salt doll story. The salt doll goes to measure the depth of the ocean. It can't because it becomes part of the ocean and there's no one to answer that question. There's no one to ask that question.
Maybe that's why Buddha never answered those types of questions.
Absolutely true.
Maybe that's why he never really did answer.
Absolutely true. That's exactly what he did, because he saw that basically all of the answers to that had been misused by the ruling class to control the ignorant, to control the people that didn't have that position. And so he didn't want to create a new story that then could be abused in the same way. So, many modern people, we think that Buddha didn't believe in God. It wasn't that. It's that Buddha chose not to speak about the things that are beyond our experience. He's like, or that are not experienceable. So we didn't want to create another metaphysics to replace the one that had been abused. So he just didn't answer it. He said, don't worry about those things. It's a stationary bicycle for you. It's not going to help you. Be here and purify.
It's a stationary bicycle.
Well, no, he did.
Well, I guess in essence, it doesn't matter,
Exactly.
Is there a heaven, is there hell, is there reincarnation? The bottom line is, what am I doing right now? How am I living? What in this moment?
That's exactly.
The higher things. I've heard people argue about reincarnation, then we come back as a dog, then we come back as a human. But the bottom line is, well, who cares? What are you doing right now?
Yeah.
How are you living? Who are you being? I think that's what the Buddha was saying.
Right.
I just focus on suffering and.
Well, yeah,
emptying
this
yourself.
moment is experienceable by you because of an ignorance. So use this moment to take that ignorance away,
Ignorance is bliss.
and know the truth. Know the truth.
No, ignorance is bliss is not true.
Yeah, ignorance is suffering, but yeah, the ultimate thing. Yeah. All right. We're down to just you and me, Balakrishna, it looks like here, and two icons. So let us say good night and go forward. And love is the one most important thing. Jai Ma.
Good night.
Good night.